The judge asked the single seal mom's call sign as a joke, then Night Fox destroyed his career. The courtroom expected a routine custody hearing. Instead, it witnessed the beginning of a career-ending mistake. She stood quietly at the defense table. No flashy suit, no dramatic posture, just a composed woman in a simple blazer, hands folded calmly in front of her. To most people in the room, she looked like a tired single mother fighting for custody of her son. To the judge, she looked like someone easy to dismiss. He adjusted his glasses, leaning back in his chair with casual authority. "So," he said, scanning her file with mild amusement, "it says here you're active duty special operations. A Navy SEAL?" A few quiet chuckles echoed from the back row. She didn't react. "Yes, Your Honor," she replied calmly. The judge smirked. "Well then," he continued, voice laced with sarcasm, "do you have a cool little call sign too? What is it? Something dramatic?" More laughter. The bailiff shifted awkwardly. Her attorney stiffened, but she remained still. There was no anger in her eyes, only patience, because she had been underestimated before, many times. The judge tapped his pen against the desk. "Well, we're all curious." A pause. Then she answered. "Night Fox." The laughter faded. Something about the way she said it didn't sound like a joke. It sounded official. The judge waved dismissively. "Right. Well, Miss Carter, this is a family courtroom, not a military tribunal. We deal in stability here. And frankly, I'm not sure frequent deployments scream stable home." Her ex-husband's lawyer smirked. They believed they had momentum. They believed they had the upper hand. They didn't know who they were challenging. Because what no one in that courtroom knew was that Night Fox wasn't just a nickname. It was a classified operational identity tied to missions most of them would never be cleared to read about. She had led night extractions in hostile territory. She had coordinated rescue operations under fire. She had been decorated for actions that remained sealed behind federal security clearance. And now, a judge was mocking her service record as if it were a costume. The courtroom doors quietly opened. Two men in dark suits stepped inside. No badges displayed, no expressions given. They took seats in the back row. She noticed them immediately. Her ex-husband did not. The judge certainly did not. He continued speaking, unaware that the air in the room had subtly shifted. "Miss Carter," he said, leaning forward, "I'm going to need proof that your so-called elite career doesn't interfere with your responsibilities as a mother." Proof. The word lingered in the air. For most people in the room, that might mean paperwork. For her, it meant something else entirely. She gave a small nod. "Yes, Your Honor," she said evenly. "I can provide proof." The two suited men in the back exchanged a glance. The judge flipped a page carelessly. "Good," he replied, "because right now I'm not impressed." He had no idea. Not impressed? In less than 24 hours, he would wish he had never asked about her call sign. Fades slowly to black. Narrator, low and steady. He thought he was making a joke. He had just triggered a federal response. By the next morning, word had spread, not to the public, but to the right people. The judge entered confidently, robe flowing behind him, unaware that today would not follow his usual script. He adjusted his seat and glanced toward her. She looked exactly the same as yesterday, calm, controlled, unshaken. But the two men in dark suits were back, and this time they weren't alone. A third official sat beside them, expression unreadable, posture rigid. The bailiff leaned toward the judge and whispered something quietly. The judge frowned, then waved it off. "Let's proceed," he said. Her attorney stood. "Your Honor, we've submitted additional documentation regarding my client's service record." The clerk handed a sealed envelope forward. Stamped. Federal. The judge looked mildly irritated. "This is a custody hearing, not a military tribunal. He broke the seal and began reading. His confidence in his posture slowly shifted. Line by line, his jaw tightened. His eyes scanned faster, then slower. The courtroom waited, because the documents didn't describe training exercises. They described operations, joint task force deployments, commendations authorized under special executive review. One line stood out: Operational Lead, codename Night Fox, decorated for counter-terrorism extraction, authorized Level 5 clearance. The judge swallowed. He looked up at her for the first time not as a litigant, but as someone carrying weight he didn't fully understand. "You led overseas operations?" he asked carefully. "Yes, sir. And these missions," he hesitated, "they remain classified?" "Yes, sir." The suited men in the back remained motionless, watching. The judge shifted in his seat. His earlier sarcasm had vanished. In its place was something far more dangerous to a man in authority: uncertainty. Her ex-husband's attorney cleared his throat nervously. "Your Honor, surely classified missions are irrelevant to—" One of the suited men stood. The entire room froze. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't display a badge. He simply spoke. "Her operational reliability and federal trust rating are directly relevant to any assessment of stability and judgment." Silence. Even the air felt heavier. The judge's fingers tightened around the paperwork. He realized something critical in that moment. The joke he made yesterday had not gone unnoticed, and it had not stayed inside this courtroom. Because when he mocked Night Fox, he wasn't just mocking a nickname. He was mocking a federally recognized operational leader, and that meant oversight, review, attention. The judge cleared his throat. "Very well," he said stiffly. "We will reassess." She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply stood there, steady as ever. Because she didn't need theatrics. The truth was doing the work for her. But what the judge didn't yet realize was that the review wouldn't stop at her credentials. It would move to his conduct, and the system he believed protected him was about to examine everything. Fade to black. Narrator, low and deliberate. He thought he was making a joke. He had just triggered a federal response. Now his own authority was being quietly evaluated. The courtroom no longer felt routine. It felt monitored. The judge adjusted his robe again, but this time the gesture wasn't confident. It was nervous. Across the room, the suited officials sat with quiet authority. No interruptions, no emotion, just observation. Her ex-husband's attorney avoided eye contact entirely because something bigger than custody was now unfolding. The judge cleared his throat. "We will proceed with testimony." But his voice lacked its usual sharpness. She stepped forward when called, posture perfect, expression composed. "Ms. Carter," the judge began, choosing his words more carefully now, "you claim your deployments do not interfere with your parental responsibilities." "Yes, Your Honor," she replied calmly. "My command structure adjusts assignments to ensure stability for my son. That accommodation is documented." It was. Every line of it. Signed. Verified. Federal. The judge nodded slowly. He could no longer dismiss her career as unstable. In fact, the opposite was becoming clear. Her service record reflected psychological evaluations, operational command trust ratings, and leadership certifications few civilians ever saw. Meanwhile, a quiet exchange happened behind him. The bailiff leaned in again. This time, the whisper lasted longer. The judge's face shifted. "Excuse the court for a brief recess," he announced abruptly. Inside his private office, 2 additional officials waited. Not courtroom observers, oversight investigators. They placed a thin file on his desk. It wasn't thick. It didn't need to be. Inside were transcripts, his previous remarks, his recorded sarcasm, his pattern of dismissive commentary toward military parents in past custody hearings. He felt the temperature in the room drop. "Judge," one investigator said evenly, "we're conducting a review regarding professional conduct and potential bias." Bias. The word hit harder than any accusation. He opened his mouth to defend himself. It was just courtroom humor. The investigator didn't blink. Mocking an active special operations officer's service record under federal classification is not humor. Silence. He understood now. This wasn't about her winning custody. This was about accountability. Back in the courtroom, the SEAL sat calmly beside her attorney, unaware of the private conversation, but not surprised by it either. She had not filed a complaint. She had not raised her voice. She had simply provided documentation. Because she knew something the judge had forgotten. Respect is not optional when you sit in authority. The courtroom doors reopened. The judge stepped back in, but the confidence that once filled the room with him was gone. Fade to black. Narrator, low, deliberate. He thought he was judging her character. Now his own was under review. When the judge returned to the bench, something was different. His movements were slower, measured, careful. He avoided eye contact with the observers in the back row, and for the first time since this hearing began, he addressed her with respect. "Ms. Carter," he began, voice controlled. "After reviewing the documentation submitted, the court finds no evidence that your service record negatively impacts your parental responsibilities." A pause. Her ex-husband shifted uneasily. "In fact," the court continued, "the court recognizes your operational commendations, leadership evaluations, and command accommodations as evidence of structure and stability." The words were formal, but their meaning was clear. She had not only defended herself, she had established credibility beyond question. The judge exhaled quietly. "Primary custody will remain with Ms. Carter." A soft gasp moved through the gallery. Her ex-husband stared forward, stunned. She didn't react dramatically. No smile, no tears, just a slow nod. Mission accomplished. But the story did not end with custody. As the gavel came down, the suited officials stood. Not hurried, not aggressive. One of them approached the bench calmly. "Judge," he said quietly, "you'll be contacted regarding the conduct review." There was no threat in his tone. There didn't need to be, because the process had already begun. Within weeks, the State Judicial Board would announce a formal investigation. Transcripts would surface. Patterns would be reviewed. Complaints from prior cases, previously ignored, would be reopened. The headline wouldn't mention her name. It would mention his suspension, and later, his resignation. Back outside the courthouse, she walked down the steps into the afternoon light. Her son ran toward her, small backpack bouncing against her shoulders. She knelt, embracing him tightly. In that moment, she wasn't Night Fox. She wasn't a decorated SEAL. She wasn't an operational leader. She was simply a mother who had protected her family the only way she knew how. With discipline, with composure, with strength. The same strength that guided her through missions in the dark now guided her through civilian life. She never destroyed his career. He did that himself. The moment he mistook professionalism for weakness, the moment he treated service like a punchline, the moment he underestimated Night Fox. Slow fade out. Narrator, final line, calm and powerful. Some warriors fight on battlefields. Others fight in courtrooms. Either way, underestimate them at your own risk.